The benefit of the self-sovereign identity is that we are in total control.
Yeah.
But with that power comes great responsibility. We have to make sure that it's always there. We have to make sure that it's protected. We have to make sure that we remember the passwords. We have to make sure that if we lose our wallet device, that we have to somehow reconstitute that identity state somewhere else. And what GlobaliD is providing is it's taking all the benefits, all the best parts of the self-sovereign identity and providing user-friendly tools to manage that identity while providing still security for users, privacy preservation for users, and the flexibility of being able to share those identity credentials with anybody that's asking for it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the GlobaliD podcast. Today, I am joined by Vadim, director of the Credentials platform. Vadim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I've been with GlobaliD for, oh my God, almost 4 years. I've been leading up the effort to add verifications of identity, credentials to users' identity, the identity that they create on GlobaliD. So I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different partners that verify identity. Have been working with our product managers and our DevOps folks and everybody in between to make that platform a reality.
Awesome. And, obviously, identity has been in the news lately. We've seen Apple with a new update that will allow you to upload your driver's license on your phone. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
The EU is working on, sort of a portable wallet for, all people over there, which is also, a step towards identity for all, which is really cool as well. So, we thought this would be a great opportunity to talk a little bit about how identity works with GlobaliD. Well, why don't we start, really simple. What is a verification? Or as the director of the Credentials platform, what is a credential? What's the difference? What's going on there?
So a credential is a digital certificate that stakes a claim that has been verified by somebody else. So if I hold a credential of my digital passport, that means that I accepted it as a credential in my identity wallet and that somebody issued that credential to me. So it's like almost like a smart contract where both sides agree on something. And that credential, I can hold it in my wallet. I can present it to anybody that requests it from me. And if this is a credential within the context of a self-sovereign identity, that means that I, as the holder of that credential, am the only one that gets to decide who gets to see it, which is a pretty wild concept.
As an identity platform, then what makes GlobaliD unique?
So if we think about identity platforms, there's two extremes. On one hand, there's federated identity platforms like Facebook, for example, that control our data. And we have to go and beg for them to let us export that data and provide some transparency as to how our own data is being used within their platform.
Yeah.
So federated, totally in control by somebody else. On the other hand of the extreme is the self-sovereign identity, which means that my identity is only on my portable device. It could be in a cold wallet. It could be on my device that's connected to the internet. The benefit of the self-sovereign identity is that we are in total control.
Yeah.
But with that power comes great responsibility. We have to make sure that it's always there. We have to make sure that it's protected. We have to make sure that we remember the passwords. We have to make sure that if we lose our wallet device, that we have to somehow reconstitute that identity state somewhere else. And what GlobaliD is providing is it's taking all the benefits, all the best parts of the self-sovereign identity and providing user-friendly tools to manage that identity while providing still security for users, privacy preservation for users, and the flexibility of being able to share those identity credentials with anybody that's asking for it. And more than that, taking it one step even further, GlobaliD wants to be the interoperable format so that even without using GlobaliD APIs, you can still communicate with GlobaliD users and request that they share their identity credentials with you. So even if, God forbid, GlobaliD goes away, there's still going to be an identity of our users that is usable on other platforms.
Gotcha. And you use the word interoperable. We also hear the term portable quite often. What exactly do those terms mean?
They're not the same thing, although they've been used interchangeably. So portable means that I have it, my identity is on my phone, and I can port it, I can go anywhere else. But portability sometimes means that you have to ask for permission for that portability. Technically, and even more so with the new legislation that's coming up, technically you can request that Facebook allows you to port your identity information somewhere else. But the way that your data is stored with Facebook may not be compatible with other platforms. So maybe you can read the information they have on you, but you can't exactly take your Facebook identity and bring it over somewhere else, even though it's portable. Interoperable means that that identity information that's sitting in your GlobaliD identity wallet can work with different other wallets. So if you have a digital credential in your GlobaliD, anybody can ask for that credential without even using GlobaliD API tools, because we're part of the same flexible framework that supports many other different self-sovereign identity wallets. So that's
Right.
where true interoperability comes from.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like if I have Gmail, I can still send you an email. If you have Yahoo, doesn't matter what wallet you have, all the identity, all the credentials are
Exactly.
compatible, right?
Exactly. GlobaliD is just the wallet that will make it a lot more simpler, hopefully, for users to take advantage of self-sovereignty of their identity.
So I know you're working on some cool projects behind the scenes. And the big one is the credentials platform. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that is actually the one of the pillars of GlobaliD. Credentials platform is what enables our users to take advantage of all of these different credentials that are available to them in the ecosystem. It's what enables them to request and get offered different digital credentials so they can hold it in their wallet. And the same credential could be obtained in multiple different ways. For example, if you need to hold your COVID vaccine record credential, there's multiple ways to get that credential from the state of California, because they have the registry of all the vaccinations that are made, or you can get it through the means of other third parties that have access to your health records. But the end result is that you can hold that credential in your wallet and you can use it wherever that credential is accepted. So there's multiple different ways that a credential can end up in your wallet. It could be as a result of direct issuance. For example, you join a group and that group member says, hey, I know you, I know your skills, whatever else that may be, and they can issue you a credential directly. So for example, they can come up with their own different types of credentials and create their own ecosystem of credentials. And so that is just one type of a credential you can get through the credentials platform. Another type of a credential you can get is by walking into a bank, talking to the teller, and by visually interacting with you, the teller would be able to authenticate you right there on the spot using their own traditional means, and then issue you a digital certificate so that you can safely interact with their customer service representatives over the phone. So they don't have to ask you a whole bunch of questions, verify your name, your address. You push a button, the credential is sent over, and they know that they are talking you and nobody else. Another way to get a credential is by verifying some part of your identity. For example, your driver's license or your passport. You can send it over to a company that will read it, verify it, authenticate it, and issue you a digital version of that passport as a credential. So those are the main ways that you can get credentials. Traditionally at GlobaliD, we've been working with verifications only, but we're now expanding it to a full credentials platform that supports any type of a credential that could be issued to a user.
Gotcha. Exciting stuff.
It is.
So
It is.
you've talked about stuff like self-sovereign identity, portable interoperable identities, credentials. All of this is a relatively new framework and approach to identity. Do you want to talk about some of the challenges and issues with sort of the traditional approaches, and sort of why a new approach is necessary?
So if you're talking about federated identity, which is what people actually to this day, people are still arguing that to be perhaps the future of this planet, is that somebody is going to be in charge of our identity, our information. For example, at a recent Money 2020 event, I remember there was a big discussion about the future of identity, and there were two camps of people. One said that we should entrust the banks to hold our identity. Okay, fine, maybe not the government, but it has to be the banks because they're regulated, they're safe, they're at the forefront of technology. Some people think that. And then there's another group of people that says, no, we can trust people to be in charge of their own identity. So depending on which camp you're in, you're going to look at the future in a very different way. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to merge the two worlds, this utopian self-sovereign world that developers, those people that are at the forefront of the technology innovation are imagining for our future. We're trying to bring that future and make it compatible with the compliant, regulated ecosystem, such as financial services. And we're trying to create tools here at GlobaliD that will prove to users that they can actually be in charge of their identity. It's not that scary. It's not that bad. If you lose your identity, you're protected. You don't have to recreate your persona somewhere else. You don't have to worry about somebody else taking over your identity or creating a synthetic identity based on it. So it's all about the usability of these secure and privacy preserving tools. That's what we're working on.
And I identity is such a personal thing. There is something intuitive about, the idea that you should have ownership and control over your own identity.
Yeah, it's funny how this is such a wild concept, and yet it comes naturally to people that start thinking about it. Yeah, like this is our data. Why is somebody making money on it? Why is somebody providing access to a honeypot of information that contains our data? There's a report that's being published every year about the price of identity information on the dark web. It's the prices are falling, guys. It's your information is out there. So unless you take ownership of it, unless you take control over it, the best advice I have for you is just imagine it's already out there. So how are you prepared to deal with the fallout of a hack like that? And somebody can have access to your social security, to your driver's license, and maybe even passport with your selfie and yourself holding it. Somebody can easily pretend to be you, and yet you need to be prepared for that possible scenario.
Well, one thing is clear: people are thinking about identity. People are taking it very seriously these days, and including one of the biggest companies on the planet, Apple, in their new iOS update. They've got some cool new identity features. What's sort of your take on their direction and their implementation?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised by that innovation. So it was only a matter of time for them to kind of expand into that as the technology matures, and as the public becomes more and more accepting of digitization of government IDs. Anything that you hold in your Apple Wallet is technically a credential, right? It's your membership card, it's your miles card, it's your tickets. You buy tickets on Eventbrite, you can export them to your wallet. That is a credential as well. Your credit cards are also credentials, so permission to spend money. So the next natural thing is, obviously the COVID vaccination record, and then your government ID. So nothing really surprising there. The details are still kind of hazy because this is fairly new. It's been announced. I think next year is going to be the official launch of this technology. Another one thing I want to reiterate is that it's definitely not a new concept. There are states out there in America that are supporting digital identities today. But the interesting thing is that the adoption of those digital IDs hasn't been all that great. So Apple is going to partner with states like that that are comfortable with digitization of their government issued documents and let you export it to your wallet. Okay, well, what does that do to Android users? Question number one. Number two, what does it matter if you can't really use it anywhere, if nobody's accepting it, right? So Apple is trying to build their own siloed ecosystem that enables interoperability, but only within their own ecosystem. So that's going to leave a few folks out of the loop for sure. So I was just reading the articles the other day. There isn't a lot of details on how that system is going to work. For example, a lot of people are asking, so how are you going to get that driver's license into your Apple Wallet? Is it going to be some sort of a verification of your physical wallet? Is it going to be, hey, put in your information, we're going to check with the state, and then we're going to export your information and put it in a nice format? Like, what is it actually going to take? Some people are speculating that you're actually going to have to go somewhere and provide your phone, and they're going to upload your information somehow. So not a lot of details. I'm going to venture a guess that this is going to require Apple's integration with government agencies directly. So it's not going to be a third-party verification of your physical credential, but rather direct issuance to your wallet from within those data systems. There's other questions that people are having as well. Like, what does it mean for somebody to accept a digital version of your driver's license when you're stopped by the police officer, for example? Right. Does that mean that you're going to have to give your whole phone to them, unlock it, and just have them take your phone into their car, just like you do today with a driver's license? What does it mean for you to have your passport on your phone when you're crossing the border? Again, the same thing. Will they scan something on my phone, or will I be able to scan something on their device? And there's a big difference in that very simple action. One thing is that you're in control because you get to choose whether you scan something or not, as opposed to the officer of the law coming over and scanning your phone just because they're next to it, if it's going to be supported by NFC technology. So a lot of open questions, a lot of questions about the ecosystem of who's going to issue, who's going to accept, and a lot of open questions about usability. But one thing for certain, the conversation is ongoing. That the conversations, there's going to be a lot more conversations around this topic. So which is great for Global ID. People are going to wake up to this possibility that digital identity is indeed the future. And we're here working on behalf of our users to make it a lot more easier for them.
Very well said. Any other thoughts on your mind, Vadim?
Well, lots of thoughts. California just announced COVID vaccination records. Don't call it a passport. Why? What do you do with it? Is anybody going to accept it? I was thinking the other day, the state of the art today is, do you have that white card? By itself, it's almost meaningless, because by providing that white card, you're not saying this is a valid certificate. It doesn't say that this is a verified certificate. You don't even make a claim that this is yours. You don't have to. It's just handwritten. And yet that's okay in a very few cases where people actually ask for it. So here we have the technology pretty much ready to support this use case of clearing folks that are vaccinated if such need arises. And yet it's not really required for a lot of cases. Some people still choose to wear masks. Some people choose not to, but nobody's asking them for a proof of their vaccination record. So where are we going with this technology? So that's what's interesting to me. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about the most, I guess, the hardest technical question that would come out of a decision to actually accept verified, validated, authenticated digital certificates of your proof of vaccination. What would that future look like? So that's what we're working on at GlobaliD right now, trying to make sense of different COVID certificates out there. EU has come out with its own scheme. America seems to be using smart health cards. California and New York are at the forefront, and yet they're still using different technologies. Is there going to be an ecosystem around this? So a lot of interesting questions, but we want to be ready in case a technology like that is going to be required.
Yeah. I had mentioned, I went to an event this week and I had to verify my vaccination. And really, it just amounted to me taking a photo of this piece of paper. Right.
Yeah.
And so, what you're saying is there is actually a way to do this safely, securely, and conveniently.
And in a privacy preserving way. They don't need to know your name to know that it is yours and that you are vaccinated.
Right. I love it.
Totally.
Vadim,
Yep.
thank you for your time. This was great. Very educational,
Alec,
I'm sure, for all of our viewers. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.